All right, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday the 13th. Spooky. The last time I did a show on Friday the 13th was March of 2020, and it was the Friday that shut the world down. We're not going to do that today, though. Got a very special guest on, another Zora Brothers Oddcast takeover of the entrepreneurial web. Today, my brosinho Jacob Fox and I are super stoked to welcome to the show. He's a UFC and WEC veteran. He's a military veteran. He's a black belt, and he's an academy owner, Mackens Semerzier. Welcome to the show, my man. How you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure is all ours. Let's just hop right into it. History first. You're a Florida native, is that correct?
Miami native, absolutely.
Miami in the house. So our dad grew up in Miami. I don't know if Jacob mentioned that before. So we spent a lot of time down there as kids.
Nice.
May have crossed paths in the waters one day. And at a certain point, you ended up in Virginia Beach in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm assuming that was via the military. Is that correct?
Yeah. So this was my first duty station. And I was in Chesapeake a while for school. And then first duty station was in Yorktown, Virginia, like just outside of Newport News.
So what branch? If you were in Yorktown, was that Army?
Marine Corps.
Oh, Marine Corps.
Yeah. We were on a Navy base, though. So we were hanging out on a Navy base. And then one of the unit I was in at the time was stationed there. They had an element in Norfolk. And I believe they have elements. Well, they do have elements for sure over in California.
Yeah, that's cool. I trained with a lot of former Marine Corps guys.
Yeah, we've had a fair amount of them cut from a different cloth, man.
It's a rough, it was, especially back in that day. It was a good time.
Yeah.
I was in 99 to 2007.
Wow. So
your audio's cutting out again.
If asking how old are you?
42.
Benjamin Button, you're going backwards.
Dude, I'm trying, man. It's like less, not getting punched in the face as much. You know what I mean? Kind of rejuvenated the skin.
Right. And you've got your own school now, right?
Yeah. So Element Academy, we opened July of 2001. So like on the tail end of the pandemic or the lockdown of the pandemic. Like soon as they said we could get back outside, it was like, cool, perfect. I mean, I was already planning for it. So I think October of 2020. So October of 2020, we started putting things in place, and it took about 6-7 months, or 8 months really, to get the doors open.
Wow. My brother is just recently, like in the last couple of school in Brooklyn, give to someone who's just open.
Your audio is really cutting out and bad in and out. I don't know.
But I'm such a good lip reader, right? I understand what's going on. I know your question was, so for everybody that may not have heard it, like you guys open up a new school in Brooklyn, and what advice I would give to someone open up a school. I think number one, I think you have to realize that you are running a micro business, not even like a small business. Like it's super niche driven by obviously the people that either need the training or will need the training, want the training, and are aware of the value in the training. That you don't get to compare yourself to like larger businesses. That's like a headache, right? Especially in today's society where people are making it very known, like what's going on in their school, how many students they have, how many people are in my class, that you don't want to get in that chase of trying to create a space where you just want as many people in there as possible. Like focus on the quality people. Those are the people that are going to help your school build, and eventually, just like everything, going to be running or representing the school in some facet. So I think just love the people you got. Like whoever's in there, just love on them, and you'll be good to go.
That's awesome. did I read you studied business in school? You have some sort of a business background?
Yeah. So right when I stopped fighting, I went to Virginia Wesleyan College. It's university now, but Virginia Wesleyan College, small school here. It's like a D3 school, something like that. And I was a business major. So I was a business major, which helped in understanding those 3 M's, money, marketing, and management. And so that was a big step for me. And then, so when people ask like, oh, did you go to school? I'm like, and they go, oh, that makes sense. Not the same type of business. It's like business in a sense of you work at another business. So you're going to do accounting at Deloitte, or you're going to management at said company, or you're going to do marketing for Google, like stuff like that. That was what the preset was, not necessarily like entrepreneurial small businesses, but you still get a lot of the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, they don't really offer classes for entrepreneurship
No.
in college. They talk about it, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
I have plenty of experience with that. Jacob's going old school.
Yo, man, is it backwards? Not only is it backwards, it is written left-handed.
Yo, Jacob, there's a chat. You can drop anything you want in the chat. Look on the right side of the screen. There's a chat, and you can send us all your questions there. We'll answer them that way. Your man went mad old school. He was like looking for a pigeon in his front yard. Like, he couldn't tie it to his
Bluetooth, man. Where's the Bluetooth, dude? You got the plug-in headphones.
I think he's so far out in the woods, man, that even there it don't work.
You're retro.
So the core of this podcast is about the intersection of the fight game and business, whether it be, we've had Olympic judo medalists on, Olympic wrestling medalists on, UFC, Bellator fighters, so on and so forth. But a lot of them have in some way gone into business for themselves or were already. I mean, some of them, they're just their own brand, which is a huge part of the fight game, which I'm sure you're aware about. But when you go brick and mortar, it gets a little interesting. So your spot's on, is it on Newtown Road? Is that correct?
Yeah, Newtown Road, right off of the interstate where that traffic light is terrible. So it's great for me because everyone has to sit there for at least 3-4 minutes and just stare at the big white jiu-jitsu sign.
So we have history right there. When we were both born in Nashville, Tennessee, but our mom grew up in Norfolk, Virginia, and our grandfather owned the shopping center on the corner of Newtown and Princess Anne for 60 years, something like that. And the first house that we lived on was on Newtown Road when we moved there, and whatever, it was like the late 80s, just south of Princess Anne Road in Arrowhead. And I went to Arrowhead Elementary. Jacob was a little one at the time. He wasn't in school yet, but we have some roots there. We know a little bit about that intersection, and that stoplight. That's great. So you said you opened July of last year. Is that right?
Before. So yeah, well, it's the top of the year, right? So it's almost forget about it's 2023, but 2021.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah. 2021. I just did the same thing. Yeah, no, totally forgot that we're in a new year now. My school is less than 3 weeks old, so I don't remember anything right now. I still remember the techniques, but that's it. The rest of it is questionable.
That's the most beautiful part.
Yeah.
Headphones, can you hear me at all?
Yeah, it's still just breaking up though.
A bit better. Yeah.
So, Mackens, one thing I read was your offer to law enforcement.
So, I caught it. So with that, we have, and I have. This is a trip too, because we've had police officers obviously that go out and they seek the training. So I come from security services or security forces type background, not only in the military, but in what I teach now. So I still do contracting with the Navy, teaching security courses, combative, shooting. So I think a lot of times, like, we forget, like, there's a continuum of force, when to use deadly force, stuff like that, right? Like we only see the techniques. Like you can some confusion in the instructional part of people that are in charge of those law enforcement defensive tactics programs. And it's not so much that they don't know 100%, they know what they're doing, obviously. But when you go into our spaces where we have like our biggest catalog of what's going on in fighting, you're looking at the UFC, you're looking at Instagram, you're looking at YouTube, and those are marketplaces where people are selling stuff, right? And you can't sell what people need all the time because they will see the same thing all the time, that you have to give them something flashy, organic, surprise them, like wow them. And in that wow, people take as the base of what is actually happening. So if you're not in the academy and seeing like what really works against people that may or may not know what they're doing, you will go to like the marketing part of what martial arts are. So in turn, they will go, jiu-jitsu doesn't work in the streets. This doesn't work in the streets. This doesn't work in the streets, because they're taking what is being marketed to catch people's attention and thinking like that is the base. And in actuality, that's not actually what's going on, especially if you're a skilled person, or when you even go and you watch like not just the highlights, watch even the high level guys at the highest level, the techniques are very, very fundamental. You can't just do whatever you want to a person that knows or has a base, right? So our LEO program, our law enforcement outreach program, is to give people the opportunity to come and be exposed to what is actually happening outside of that marketplace sale. So we don't sell it. We're not like trying to create this national brand, nothing like that. I'm doing what I feel is my piece in my community. Say, if you want to train every quarter, so every 3 months, we're like, hey, 5 of you come train for 3 months for free. Get your gear and then, jump into training. And so you have a better understanding of what's going on. It will also let you know that those people that may look unassuming, because by nature we go, okay, this guy's big, probably more dangerous, that the small guy can jam you up. That big guy you may see may just be big, full of air, may just be full of creatine, and you can handle him well. And in our understanding of what people perceive as danger or dangerous, they will act accordingly. And I give this example because I teach a class called communication, subject communication. So when you're dealing with people, and a lot of it's built on understanding your own biases, your own fear. A lot of time we say the word uncomfortable. When I say, oh, this makes me uncomfortable, what it really is, I'm scared. Maybe I'm not overtly scared, but this is making my brain go like, be prepared, this thing can be dangerous. I just say this, I tell the class, like, have you ever met a gorilla? You ever met a gorilla? And they're like, no. Like, I see one on TV, maybe in the zoo, but have you physically been with one without a barrier? They go, no. So I said, so if a gorilla came into the classroom right now, right, would you go and pet it? Would you go shake its hand? They're like, absolutely not. And I say, why? They say, well, because it's dangerous. I was like, how do you know it's dangerous? Well, I saw, right, someone else's story. I was told it is dangerous. I've been exposed to it only in a dangerous nature. That's okay. And now this gorilla does what a gorilla does, right? Beat his chest, start moving towards you. What would you do? They would like, shoot it. Like, why would you shoot it? I was like, because it's dangerous and it can do this to me. Which obviously, if a gorilla comes near anyone, you should go the opposite direction, right? Like, I'm just using that as an example to kind of keep their attention. But we understand the more confident you are without being overzealous, the less likelihood you'll have to use violent force when it is unnecessary. If you're not well trained, even if the person doesn't have the intention of maybe killing you, beating you up pretty good, doing serious bodily harm to you, you'll be forced to elevate the amount of force that you would need to use against them. So our program, I'm gonna say, I don't even want to call it a program. Like, our initiative, our outreach program, is just give them the ability to be a little bit more confident, so they don't always have to go use of the continuum. For a reason, it is necessary in a lot of situations, but it's not the only option, right? There are steps to it, and people need to understand that.
You're starting to see in the Northeast, I don't know if you spend any time up here, but a lot more academies starting to do similar outreach, which is a very, in my opinion, welcome thing, because there's so much divisiveness, if I said that the wrong way,
I
up
like
here.
both of them.
What's the other one I do? Penalize.
Yeah,
I don't know why I
like
say
that.
that, but now I learned tournament. Up here they have tournaments. They're not tournaments, they're tournaments. Yeah, it's a welcome addition, especially a bunch of like former Henzo guys that have schools in, not former Henzo guys, I should say, like Henzo black belts that have schools in North Jersey, especially. There's a big push for that right now. And, there's been ongoing tensions and issues in the Northeast, especially in Philly and New York and places like that, between, armed forces, police, etc., and the general public. And, there's even an example, I think it was in Staten Island. Jacob and I were talking about it last week on our show, where a cop had a guy in a sleeper hold and choked him to death instead of just unconscious. And, to your point, it has to do with the, somewhere along the way, lack of training, but also that fear factor, that lack of security, knowing that, okay, I know how to apply this. I know when the situation is subdued and not take it too far. And unfortunately, that instance alone gave jujitsu up here, and in conjunction with the police force, a pretty bad rap. And that was years ago. And maybe the pandemic was one of the things that just kind of like shook everybody's brain up, like those little Christmas ornaments, and snow goes everywhere and it settled back down. It seems like it's much more welcome these days, especially, in light of the way New York was in like summer of 2020, when they were like burning police vans and stuff, to have kind of this openness to, yeah, let's get them more training. Let's embrace this and try to de-escalate these situations. I'm really fond of those initiatives here, and it's something we're gonna do at our academy. We've got a number of things on the table right now. In fact, coming up at Henzo's next month, there's a thing with veterans. I forgot the name of the organization, or I forgot the acronym, but ironically, a guy just came into my restaurant last month and started to talk to me about it. He's a veteran himself, was high risk for suicide, spent a lot of times in homes, was incarcerated, the whole nine. And he's out now, and he's kind of dedicating his life to helping vets with high suicide potential. And he said one of the things that have been proven to help was martial arts training, some sort of regular martial arts training. So his friend told him, we have a mutual friend, and they told him about me opening this academy. So it's going to be one of our first forays into that, where we're bringing in, we have to do it like special class, like not general population, where we bring in a handful of high risk vets. We walk them through some techniques and get them into some, I don't know, like, I'd love your input on this. Like, do we let them rip? Do we let them do some live training like within the first couple weeks, or is it gonna be mayhem, man, and like blood on the mats? Like, what do I do? These are guys, military experience, have shown that they were, considering killing themselves, and some of them have been in prison. Like, I'm a little nervous, but I want to do it.
Definitely one of those situations where we do situational training now all the time. And guys have talked about this, and actually even, I don't remember where I read the article, and top 5. And he was talking about like the growth of his academy, or how it sprouted from whatever the concern was, and then whatever was through the roof. And it was situational training, which is, Master Hickson Gracie talks about it, Hunter Gracie talks about it, like the positional training. So if we're training, and then I'm bigger, stronger than you, and now you get on top of me, right? And I don't know all the techniques to get out. Maybe I have an understanding that my end result is to be on top of you. We'll just leave it at that. And you can't punch, kick, scratch, twist my finger, stuff like that. Is if I get trapped there too long, right? Like, we're going to be trained 5 minutes, and we're going to roll, let's say 3 rounds, not a big number. And I spend 14 minutes and 45 seconds on bottom. Either one, I'm not gonna believe in the technique, or two, in that time, I'm gonna take it as a survival thing and I'm gonna do whatever I feel is necessary. And when I get on top, I may kind of stay in that zone and be way more dangerous than I should be per the situation. So a lot of times what we do is short time on top, and I'll just give you guys a recipe. It's really 90-second go. You spend 90 seconds on top, a minute and a half, and you have a particular objective, and then you'll switch. On the bell, you'll switch. It'll be a very, very short 15 seconds. You'll switch, and now you get to be on the top, right? So you go between the two, so you have a chance to be on the bottom and be on the top. And it helps with your overall game just later on in jiu-jitsu, if we're just talking about jiu-jitsu. But there's enough stress without the submissions for it to be valuable. So it can be a situation like that, like, okay, you guys can train. This is what we're working on. First class is maintaining the mount and escaping the mount. Now you're going to be mounted on the guy, or they'll be mounted on top of you, or however you guys frame it. And then if you're on bottom, your job is to escape. And if you're on top, your job is to stay on top, right? That person can reverse the position or get you back to the guard. We'll call that a win. Reset, same person on bottom, same person on top. Things will switch top and bottom. And now, if you're on the whole time, you never get out, cool, you get a chance to be on top. You don't spend the entire time in the bottom position, because then you're going to do what you need to do to survive, or feel like you're going to do whatever you need to do to get on top. I would not allow the submission aspect just yet. I mean, you have to explain that to the guys. Like, yeah, you guys might know submissions, but there's a way you apply it. There's a way to understand when you got your partner to comply. We tap to show our partner, hey, that was a good technique. It worked. You're choking me. I don't need to be on the verge of passing out. You got my arm. My arm doesn't be on the verge of breaking. You caught it. Cool. Let's reset. Let's try it again. So if you were to do it, my advice would be to do it in a positional way. And then as you become more comfortable, you start understanding who's in front of you, then you start to allow certain submissions to start to happen. Just like you wouldn't let white belts do heel hooks. And I know it's like this big thing. Let everybody do everything. But you have to understand, it's like we had a situation here in Newport News, actually, at an elementary school my daughter used to go to when she was in elementary school. And you had a 6-year-old with a gun and shot their teacher, right? Kindergarten, first grade, a 6-year-old shot their teacher. This is last week. Rich Neck Elementary. I said it.
What?
So, yeah, exactly, right? So you have a dangerous weapon. You have someone that knows how to apply it. No understanding. We're reasonable to say they have no understanding or capacity of that weapon. So they're gonna go out there. They're gonna be like, oh, just like Fortnite. I'm not bagging on Fortnite. I don't even know. I just know Fortnite, right? Boom, right? And then we reset. You're gonna be okay. I just shot you. It's not a big deal. I'll do like a little dance. But we understand, like, obviously it has some large implications. When you give somebody the heel hook that they don't know, they know this is a move. They don't know what's gonna be on the end result of it, and they just go, wow. Yeah, you don't get hurt, but you hurt your partner. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with the choke. We were just talking about the applied choke to that person eventually died. Is that I know the move. I can put it on, but I don't have the experience to understand, like, when I've reached the point that I have control of the situation to do the move. And that's what every single jiu-jitsu move. Every time you have a free trial, every time you have an intro, people talk to each other, but you don't know what's going to happen to them when they actually start to apply those techniques to another person. And you're responsible. You should have some responsibility for the people that are in your academy, under your watch, that if you allow someone to come into the space and break their arm, right? Literally break their arm. It's not only that person's fault, but you own a part of that. So situational sparring without submissions works great. Everybody's going to be tired. Everybody's going to get roughed up. Everybody's going to appreciate the techniques. And then as you start to assess them, you say, okay, now we can start to, change it, make it a little bit, I don't want to say make it a little bit more realistic, but will allow you to start to do some submissions, as the training starts to progress, your experience starts to progress.
Can y'all hear?
Right. Because these guys.
All right.
Say again.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, more like that.
So I'll talk slow back in.
Okay.
I have talked about this. Road. Have you ever had anybody challenge you in your school?
Injure me?
Challenge, like a dojo raid.
Oh, challenge. Oh man. Let me see. I always say this, right? Like, you know, I always say, you know, the terms like jujitsu is for everyone. That is true. But my academy is for me. So if I get the feeling, and I have to, and I've been doing this, been teaching since 2003 or 4. So, and that's with weapons training. So people are like, I teach firearms training. That is first and foremost what I teach. I've taught more people how to shoot guns, rifles, and shotguns than I've done anything else. I've taught more people, right? Kickbox, more people that than I've taught jujitsu. And I've been teaching jujitsu since the last, I don't know, 15, 20, I don't know, forever, since like almost blew up. So I try to assess people. I have to assess them really, really quickly, right? Like you give a bunch of people guns and you say, okay, hey, shoot that paper. Don't turn around and shoot me, right? Even though I'm talking to you, this is wrong, that is wrong. Do this, do that, do that. I have to understand. I have the understanding to understand like you're not going to hurt me. So when I do get someone in the gym or I get them into training and I don't feel the proper energy, a lot of times they just don't make it into school. So they wouldn't get to a point where someone, and I'm thinking of a student like moves to a point of like, hey, you want to roll with me? But I do have students that want to train with me. And I tell them, see, the 2 ways we're going to train. If we train with the gi on, we could be cool. We're going to train. Like, I'm going to apply enough force to you that you still get work out of it, right? Like, you're going to bench press. I'm your personal trainer. I'm not going to say, okay, we're going to start with 500 pounds on the bar. It's going to crush you. It's not going to make any sense. So then when I get you to the weight of a weight you can do 135, you're still thinking 500, you probably won't progress well. So I just apply enough pressure. But when we go no-gi, if we train no-gi, it's on. And it's why I don't train that much with the students, rolling wise. One, because they've already been training and I've been watching them train, then they want to roll. I don't feel like it's not fair. But if we're doing no-gi training and if you want to train with me, train together the whole class. That free rolling section of the class, right? Kind of after. Then we can say, okay, it's fair, we're both at the same level. Then I'm gonna train like I would normally train. But like Jacob, like, we used to train like so hard for so long during those times when we're all training together. Like that is my understanding of training to prepare for something. Sometimes if I'm going to train with you, then you get to me technique, which is a more ego thing, but people can hurt you. People can hurt you and you want to be able to protect yourself. So you have to train hard too. But I've never had anyone randomly come into my gym and say, hey, I want to roll with you. I want to do this with you. Like, I think I would take that, like if someone came into my house, like just walked in my door and is like plopped on my couch and be like, this is my couch now. Right. So obviously I'm going to fight you at a different level. Right. So you say, if we're fighting for money, I think Hickson said this, he said, if we're fighting for money, I'll stop hitting you when you quit. If we're fighting for pride, I'm going to keep hitting you until I feel like I don't want to hit you anymore. It's kind of like one of those situations. And it's just like all about respect. But luckily I have not had that happen. I don't want that to happen because I understand what I could do. And I don't want to live like that.
So how like dude comes in the door, how do you handle it? Because I have to think about this. Like, what do you say to diffuse the situation?
I said, so give me an example. Be the guy real quick. So let's see what we're doing.
I walk in the door and I'm like, yo, I heard you were a badass. Mm-hmm. I think I'm a badass too. I think I think I could take you. You want to prove your shit right in front of all your students? Let's go.
I smile like this. And I said, bro, we don't train like that. I said, we don't train like that in here. Right? Like we don't do that. Because my point is not to prove anything to him. Right? And this is in front of you. And I'm going to say that because I'm in a good mood. I just had a little coffee. So I'm saying that in that my students know our abilities, my students know what's going on, and then my students know that you could mangle this person, right? Like just especially when we go in the space of like some untrained person coming off the street, did a couple push-ups outside, now they want to come. Like it's not what we do contest, because that's what you do. What we do every single day here is fight, and that's what gives us the confidence, not an ego, because we actually do train, gives us the confidence to believe in our abilities and our techniques and our training. But if you're like a random person, I just smile and tell you no, like no, you can't. But we've had people come in here. God told me he was a 6th-degree blue belt, and he wants to train, but he wants to. I mean, just all type. And I said, bro, this ain't the place for you. I just sound like that's not the place for you. If I had a student that I felt like was dangerous, what's the word? I don't want to say conform, but it is kind of conform. Like when you go and you do like a test to see if you can get along with the group. If you can't get along with the group, I don't care whatever money you're gonna pay me, bro. Here's all of it back. Go train across the street. Like it's not worth it. You know, it's not gonna be worth to beat up the guy or to have that person come in and challenge you. Now, if they came in there and they said exactly that, and they took a swing at me, and they tried to hit me, or they tried to touch me, or they try to move, or they try to get on the mat, then it's a whole different situation. Then I'd probably grab and try to throw them through the, well, not through the glass, I have to pay for it, but like very much out of
If it was somebody else's academy, though, right through the glass, baby.
Yeah.
Someone else pays that bill.
I had a guy do that one time. He was like, he wanted a job teaching, and this is down at the House of Muay Thai. We have a jiu-jitsu program there, and he came, and then man, I got set up too. I was the black belt. He was teaching the class, and I wasn't there. And he was like, "Yeah, this guy wants a job," and I was like, "Okay." And then I was like, "What'd you tell him?" I'm thinking he blew him off. He's like, "No, I told him that he needed." I said, "Why would you tell him that, Christian? Like, why you tell him that?" So I go, and I don't think this guy's really gonna show up, and I start getting this phone call. Answer the phone call, starts talking, and then I'm telling him like, we don't teach kung fu here, bro, don't worry about it. But he's already showing up. He's like, oh, I'm outside. And then he comes in, he starts talking to me, and then I'm like, I was like, bro, let's go outside. I had a couple students in, we're about to start a class, and he's telling me that he's a kung fu this. I was like, bro, no, karate, kung fu, I don't remember. But I was like, I don't do that, but no karate. School is on like 40-something street, maybe you can go down there. And the guy was like, oh, I don't have a car. And I was like, you can always walk, you know, we're on like 21st Street or 20 blocks. And then a woman is passing. He goes like, hey, can you give me, I mean, scares her. I say, yo, man, you can't be doing that. He's like, what's wrong with her? Like, she can't give me a ride. I was like, she doesn't know you. She doesn't know you to give me a ride. And then he, you know, he does this. He goes, he's like, why are you talking to me like that? And I go, talking to you like what? And he's like, man, you're talking to me like I'm just a piece of trash. I said, no, I don't feel that at all. And he's like, I'm an Air Force veteran. You know what I could do? And the guy probably weighed like 125 pounds, man, real lean dude. And then he's looking at me, and I go, because I know the students are looking out of the window because we're standing in front of the glass. And I say, I was like, you know what, man? I said, good luck, best wishes, but I gotta go. As I start to walk toward, he's like coming. I said, stop. I said, bro, you are not welcome in the gym. Do not come inside. Because the line, now if you come inside, I'm gonna have to put you out. And that's about it. But that's probably one of the two that someone looked at me and was like, but I've had those two, like people come to like, want to train? And I'm like, I'll train with you. And I took a guy and do like a Sayanagi, and he like landed like real, like a scorpion, like heels over his head. And then I felt so bad. He was fine after though. He got up, he was fine, and we trained some more. But then afterwards, I was thinking about it, and I was like, that wasn't a good show of control, because you could seriously hurt people. You know what I mean? You take them down, throw them on the ground, mash them up, and you do not want that to be the attitude of your academy, where like people are overtly trying to break people or smash them or feel like that's the whole Manaforcer thing. You know, they're like, you know, if you lead by force, you're not going to lead very long, because the next person is going to come up want to lead by force, and they're not going to have a group that in their attempt to get better at learning the martial art. having a place to spend their time and give their energy to. So yeah, avoid those people as much as possible.
So I didn't have a dojo raid, but I had a situation the other night. It was the first time where it was just like mad uncomfortable. It was the last class of the night, 8 p.m. I'm getting ready to teach kickboxing. I've been teaching all evening. I started kids at 4 o'clock, went through that, advanced no-gi, the whole thing. And we got a bunch of new people because we're new, So I had a couple return students. There was a school in the neighborhood 3 years ago, but they closed in March of 2020 and left the city. And the space became available, and it was still kind of set up similar. So my buddy and I took it over and just reopened a couple weeks ago. So we've got return students. So I had a couple return students on the mat, and some new people were coming through the door. One lady walks in. I'm up there talking to her. Another lady walks in and looks at the other lady and like, oh, hey, we know each other. And right at the same time, a guy walks through the door with her. And I just assumed they were together. She sets her bag down on the bench and the guy sits down right next to her bag. And the two women were talking, and I'm talking to them, and I said hello to him, and I start talking to them again, and like, we'll start class in 5 minutes, do this, do that. And then I just turned to him to acknowledge him. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And he's looking at the gis hanging up on the wall, and he's like, I want to buy a gi. And I'm like, okay. He's like, how much are they? And I'm like, well, these are 100, these are 140, these are 160. He's like, cool, I want to buy one and take a class now. And I was like, well, we're not doing jiu-jitsu right now. We're doing kickboxing. And I have to teach. So I was like, let me get your email address. And he stands up and comes close to me, and I smell him, and I realize he's homeless. He didn't look homeless though. He had like decent, good shoes, regular clothes. But as he got close to me, I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, fuck, I gotta squash this quick, because I was supposed to teach in like a couple minutes. So I'm like, let me get your email address. And he goes, yeah, Prospect Avenue. And I'm like, that's the avenue that the school's on. And I'm like, cool. That's a physical address. I need your email address. And he's like, what's email? And I'm like, my man, I gotta go. You come back when you have an email address. I was like, but I gotta teach right now. And he's like, okay. And I turn to go on the mat. He sits down and he starts taking all of his stuff out of his bag, and he's like writing stuff down on papers. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So I tell my buddy who's there, this guy's a purple belt, he's big. And I was like, just watch my back. And I go back up there and I'm like, we're starting a class. You cannot be here. You have to leave. And he finally just looked up at me and was like, all right, I get it. And he left. But I was thinking, here we go.
Yeah.
Didn't happen though. He left peacefully. But it threw me off, man. It threw me way off. And I had to start the class, and I had these new people. So I'm paying attention to them and like my return students. And I was just like, it took a minute, man. It was rough. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah. Happens. And then where we were, especially in like Norfolk, we'd have people come there want to read poetry. We'd have people come in there and just want to sit and watch class for like all the time. And I had a guy at the new school, and he would come in and he would sit. And apparently he was coming on Fridays, and one of my brown belts would teach on Fridays. And he would come in on Fridays, he'd sit. And I've seen him before, and he was just, I was like, let everybody talk, be kind, keep a bladed stance. Don't have your hands in your pockets. You have to be, ready, just like you would tell anyone else, right? There's a reactionary zone. I'm not going to let you get so close to me. We can hear each other. Good. We can talk. And the guy would come into the class. Apparently he came in once. We had some ladies, and he said some stuff I just didn't like. It was just the 6th degree purple, blue belt guy. And he was saying some things about, I said, bro, you got to go out. I was like, let's talk outside. I'm trying to miss as quickly as possible. But apparently he had been coming in. He had been sitting in on the class. So he comes in one time, and it's kids class, and he's just sitting there. And I didn't recognize him, and I thought he was with these people. I see this kid get up that's watching they move. Don't think much of it. And the guy's sitting there, and he's sitting there, and then I recognize him. And I go up to him, and I said, bro, I was like, bro, how can I help you? And he's like, oh, man, I'm just sitting. I was like, you can't sit in and watch kids class. I was like, you know what, man? I put my flats on. I'm like, let's talk outside. Like, the class is going on. And he's talking to me, and I'm smiling. And I'm like, listen, bro, you cannot come back here ever. Don't ever come back here. I was like, you're not welcome here, in the most respectful way. And he's like, oh, okay, man, you don't gotta look at me like that. But that's the thing and saying restaurant, like, people know where you are all the time. I know, like, so Jacob in law enforcement, it's not like, especially when you're a law enforcement officer, your face is still the same face, right? You put a uniform on, you have a face, you uniform off, still the same for Target, Walmart, all the same places people are. That may not like you very much, right? Or may have some, unbeknownst beef with you. So you have to carry yourself and be prepared to protect yourself and understand people are going to recognize you before you recognize them, right? So when you're a school owner, kind of like the same thing. Even in our school, we have tents. I can't see outside most of the time. People can, and at night, it kind of reverses. Like during the day, I can see out, and at night, I can't see out. Like they can see in. So people know where you are, they know your schedule, and then what you're gonna do. So it's not like you can be overtly rude to these people. Like they could just be waiting for you outside, if you will, for example. So in those situations, it's always keep a smile on, but be fully prepared to defend yourself in your space and move them away from your space and kindly ask them not to come back. Like the most we can do. Unlike, it's not like the kung fu movies where you can just like start jamming them up, roll them outside, have them carry them out and throw them out the back door. It's like, cool. Then he just walks around the building, comes right back in the front door. It's more like a rock, or you break your stuff, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you imagine he come up to you, like just spit on you and then run away. Maybe you don't get him, but that spit, you're gonna feel that spit for a while. You can wash it off, and then like 3 weeks later, you're like, God, that guy spit like right in my. Like we don't need that. That's not helping anyone. Not a person.
Yeah.
So avoid them.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And getting them outside, that's great. I mean, I do that. I've had to do that in the restaurant where I'm just like, yeah, let's step out front, and then I'm just like, you can't come back here anymore, especially like the rowdy drunk guys. I'm just like, nah, man, and I do, but I never thought about that with the academy. That's great advice. I want to circle back to what you were talking to, like with the positional training and the vets, which was fantastic advice, because I kind of, we do that a lot, like with white belts, with brand new people, but I just hadn't kind of put the pieces together, especially with these guys that have combat experience. I don't want to trigger anything and then just, be cleaning blood up off the mats. But what you made me think about it, and I said earlier, we try to correlate the values of martial arts and the values of business. And I talk about that a lot with business, like that idea of just working the escapes into positions. Don't worry about winning. This is not the big like payout. It's about keeping yourself in a position to win eventually. And you connected those in a really eloquent way, dealing with the vets. Could you draw some correlations, maybe personally, that have kind of stuck with you between martial arts and business that have helped you succeed? It could be back in your fighting days, currently. That's something you're looking to do in the future. Just like one or two things where you can kind of connect those dots.
Absolutely. So in martial arts, this is the biggest one in business. In martial arts, it's not about who's the best. Like I think one of the guys from like the original whatever the original Dirty Dozen, he said this. I can't remember his name right now. But he says it's not who's the best, it's who's left. Just like in business, especially you have a restaurant, they open up a restaurant across the street. Oh no, you have a restaurant, you have a person maybe in your restaurant, and they're working in your restaurant, seem motivated, give them manager. It's hard for them, but they're doing well. Then you make a change. As an entrepreneur, your job is to look to the future, not like, okay, we got this, just hold this. I was like, this will die if this doesn't grow. If it doesn't. The trends, it's going to die. That's how it works. So they go like, you make a change. I don't like your idea. I'm going to open up a restaurant across the street. You say, man, God bless you. You know what I mean? Do the best you can, because you don't see what's happening behind the scenes, or how hard this is behind the scenes to keep the business aspect that you get to enjoy, which is just the management, interacting with people. So they can have an idea, but being able to hold the line. So you have to go to the point where you're almost going to fail. Like you're almost going to fail. And that's when like you're in the right space. Now it's like how long you can hold that line, and then you're going to see the elevation. Just like in training, sometimes you're doing great, especially in the beginning, because everything's new, you're making advance. Then you're going to start to feel like, man, none of my moves work. I can't do this. I suck at this, whatever expectation you may have of yourself. And it's like, no, this is good, right? This is good. You need this dip. So now you can have a rebound and start to move up again. I think in business, people move into the space, and unbeknownst to them, what they think they see, well, what they see is what they think is actually going on, you know, behind the scenes. Like, good food doesn't keep a restaurant open. It does help though. You need good food. Good location doesn't keep a restaurant open, but it does help though, right? Good management doesn't keep a restaurant open. Like, all these things, sacrifice is what makes it, right? It's being able to hold the line the longest keeps you in business. As long as you're doing all the other stuff. Same thing in martial arts. People come in and you start and it's hard, but you expect it to be hard. Then it gets easier, but then it gets hard again. And it's just these peaks and valleys. Once you start to accept those peaks and valleys, you'll start to have a bending of what growth and success is, just like in business. It's growth and success. I have people I know, and we'll stay with the restaurant stuff, and they're like, man, you know what? I want to own my own restaurant. I'm like, why do you want to own your own restaurant? They're like, oh, you know, I love cooking. I was like, well, you should just go cook for someone. Party, especially in, like, you know, the down, right? Like, you're like, oh, I'll cook for your family, and people will pay for that. People will pay, and they're like, hey, come and cook for us. You give them money for the grocery. Like, if cooking is what you like, just go cook. You don't know a brick and mortar business, and there's so many subsets of that as it relates. Or I like martial arts. I want to be I'm just using UFC for example. I want to be a UFC fighter. It's like, well, which part do you like? Well, I like the jiu-jitsu. Well, just do jiu-jitsu or just do kickboxing. Stay in your lane, because owning a brick and mortar or running business is not solely, or is not only the teaching part. The teaching part is the easy part. That's the fun part. That's the part, like, we all like. Like, we want to go out and teach and train and do these things. But there's a lot of other stuff going on, right? There's money, marketing, management stuff going on that people may not see, just like in the training. So they see a guy and they see him training and doing well and doing all these things. They're not talking about all the moments where all my friends are out having fun. I have to sit at home because I need to recover. All the times you have bumps and bruises, ice packs, ibuprofen, all these other things that you're not seeing. They're not seeing all the mental battles you're having. Like, bro, I should just quit. I need to stop this. I can have a much better life. I don't have to wake up every day, my head hurt, or this hurts, or that hurts. Like, those are the things that are not seen. And those are the, you know, same type of aspects, same type of issues happening in business, especially during tax time. Like, people don't understand, like, oh, I got my W-2
coming up.
You don't understand, like, what's going on. Exactly. You don't understand, like, I have a spread on my table right now. You understand all this stuff is going on, getting these numbers right. Depreciation is, I just bought this. This is cost of goods sold, or is this an expense? Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's like, oh, you just hire somebody. Well, you hire them, and it's not free, not $2, right? If you want good work, it's going to cost some money, but you don't have any money. You don't have any money because you just started. So you have to learn how to do it on your own. If you're not ready to do all that stuff, it's not going to be successful. Or if you have that expectation on yourself, it's not going to be successful. So the idea between martial arts and business is, it doesn't matter how long you stay. And especially in jiu-jitsu, if you stay, you will be good. The end. You will be better than the person that either just came in, or you'll be better than the person that stuff. Is really that easy, right? We see places and you're like, man, their hot dog sucks. This restaurant, but they're open for 30 years, 40 years. It's like, how? Because they've learned how to manage and learn how to stay open and learn how to resist the temptation of giving up, and have, you know, managed the ebb and flows of, like, the market, right? Of people, you know, people are eating their hot dogs, not eating their hot dogs, how much hot dogs cost, a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So I think, like, falling in love with the process. And I have to even remind myself that, like, you wanted a business, and then I have, like, some government contracts where I teach, like, some other Navy dudes and stuff like that. And there's times that work gets, I don't want to say hard, but it's a little bit daunting. Like, you got to wake up, you got to think of this. Like, I just want to sleep in. You can't sleep in. You got to get up, and you need to go do this, and you need to go do that. Like, people are depending on you. And you have to remind yourself, like, no, this is what I wanted. I've said that to myself almost as a mantra, especially when I don't want to do it. And I go, like, no, this is what you asked for. Literally, I say, this is what you asked for 4 or 5 times. And then I just got to be like, this is what you asked for. Now go make good on it. You know, same thing I tell guys when they're training, like, this is the type of training you asked for. You cannot quit. You asked for this. No one brought this upon you. You asked for it. Now let's make good on it. You know,
that's awesome.
Big one.
Yeah, I've had to tell myself that a few times lately. You asked for this. You made this bet.
Exactly. Yep.
One more question for you. We'll start to wrap this up soon, but I have to ask this of all the fighters that come on. Why did you choose fighting? Why did you choose MMA in a ring where you're putting yourself in significant harm's way? You start as an amateur, not making any money, sometimes paying to get your head knocked in. What was the precipice for I want to do this?
So I think I didn't necessarily want to be a fighter, to be good at something, right? Like, so start off as a kid, like my uncles wrestled, so, and I was following behind them like everywhere. Like I'm the oldest of the second oldest of like 8 or 9. I'd have to count. And then my uncle, one of my uncles, is the youngest. So I was like, we're only 4 years apart. So I used to just follow him around everywhere. He played football, he wrestled. I want to wrestle. He got all these trophies around. I want to do what he does. And in doing that, I didn't grow to be 6'5", so it was like no basketball for you. I wasn't as big as the other kids, so it was like, all right, football is cool. And I wasn't like extremely fast, like even like sprinting, like not very fast. So it's like, well, what can you do? Well, I was like, well, if 2 people around about the same weight, I can grab them and I could throw them on the ground and hold them down, right? Like I could do that. And they're like, okay, cool, right? So kind of went into the wrestling space. And then my parents, my family, big combat sports. So boxing was like the leading combat sport, and we saw UFC on TV. And I was like, that is, what are they doing? Like, this is terrible wrestling. I thought it was wrestling. I thought it was like WWF at the time, wrestling. And I was like, they suck. I was like, why are these matches over so fast? Like, these guys suck. He punched him once. Why you fall down? You got to get up, kick him in the stuff. So when I finally started learning what those things were, and then I was kind of taking a hiatus from boxing after some injuries, started doing jujitsu because I was looking for a place to do judo, and the guy didn't show up. I went to like Kempsville Rec Center. There's like a library there, and then they had judo there. And I went. This is like, the internet was super weak. And long and short is I started training and just never stopped. Like I was already, and I've been training with some guys like in the Marine Corps, like they had like a little fight club, like beat. But the choice to turn professional is because as an amateur, the team I was with, you were training like a professional. It's not like nowadays. Like I have guys, they train 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Hey, I want to take this fight. Like I'm not going to tell you. I have nothing to tell you. You've been training like 5 seconds, right? I have no information for you. We were training really, really hard. And what ended up happening was like, so I was a representation for our team basically, or that's how I felt. So I'd fight these amateur fights and fight another amateur fight, get prepared for one guy doesn't show up, get prepared for one guy shows up and then leaves. And I'm tired of going through these really hard training camps, giving up a lot. And if the guy leaves, I don't get anything back. I was like, well, I might as well fight professionally. That way, if he leaves, I'll get some money, right? I'll get something out of it. And that's kind of how it snowballed. But my intention was never really to fight like in the UFC or fight for a really long time. I was thinking about it before we did this interview when I stopped. And I was 31. And in today's aspect, they're still very young in the fight game. Like 31, obviously, and physically, I was still fine. Had a couple injuries, but you could still fight. I just knew it wasn't the lifestyle I wanted for an extended period of time because I had been a boxing fan for so long. And when I was getting to like 31, that age when you're like aware of what you're seeing, the reality is like, I just saw all these boxers I used to love, and they couldn't talk, had the fat tongues, and they had obviously traumatic brain injuries and things like that. And I was like, oh, and I was coming off of having a concussion. I had like a headbutt, me and the guy headbutt, like clash heads, and I had a big old hematoma. It was terrible. But then I had complications after that for a long time. And then I knew afterwards that I had to still be concussed. And I was like, you know what? I need to use my brain while I still have it. And then after school and all these other things started coming, after that. But there was not a mindset of in, but once I was in, it was on. I needed to protect myself, and you had to operate at a very, not only high level, but almost malicious level to be able to compete in those sports because people are trying to do malicious things to you. Like, I'm gonna hold you down with one hand. I'm gonna punch you in your face as I can until somebody stops me, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't know how long I want to do that. And then it made me very wary about bringing other people into that space. Like, as a coach, like, you're like, oh yeah, grab this guy. I'm
Yeah.
like, I know what good things can happen, and I know what bad things can happen to you, right? Like, if you're not prepared for both, then you probably don't want to do this. You know, I was prepared for both, but that's me. You know, I'm not gonna drag you up here. I don't need. Luckily, I don't find fame, if you will. And if I push a lot of fighters, I'll be like a famous coach. I don't want to be a famous coach. I just want to teach the people in my school, right? I don't want 100 people trying to flock in. You can make me this, or you can help me do this. You can help me do that. I'm like, if you train in my school, then you are my student. I'd help my students, right? I help my students, help my friends, things like that. But it wasn't a conscious, like, you know what, I can do that on TV, especially because I was a lighter featherweight, 145. You didn't get, if you watch the early UFCs, you see all the, and they're like, oh, Hoist Gracie was a little guy. Yes, Hoist Gracie was small, but he's not small like some of the other small dudes that were getting their head beat in. So it wasn't like, oh, I want to do that. I want to go get smashed by this big giant guy, right? I want to fight Ken Shamrock. Absolutely not, right? Not on my mind, especially untrained. I was like, no, why would I do that? No.
Do you get
So,
do you still get people that seek you out that are like, hey, you're a UFC veteran, you did really well, like, can you trade me, can you get me ready for the UFC?
yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I don't say all the time like that, but I do get people that come in and they'll start training maybe a week, 2 weeks in, and they'll come and they'll tell me like, yeah, man, I think I want to fight. Well, I had like, I want to fight. Like, have you ever had training? Have you ever fought before? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, I could say, yeah, come on in, sign up for membership and then take your money. But then I go like, well, maybe you should come in and try some classes first. Maybe get punched in the face a couple of times first, and then decide if you want to do this for an extended period of time. Because the people that are going to punch you in the face in the gym are your friend, not your friend. Punch your face, they're going to try to break your face. And if I think you're not ready, I'll tell you no. Like, if you're having a fight here, I'll tell you no. And if you say, well, I'm going to go anyway, are you going to come and corner me? I say, no, I'm not going to come corner you. I'm not going to be a part of this. There's so many more people that I could give my energy to that I don't want to give people false hope. Like, fighting or competing is an athletic endeavor. To be not to compete, to be successful in an athletic competition, you must be athletic. Everyone's not athletic. Everyone has the ability to do jujitsu because it's you versus you for the most part. Is the version of you that you are right now against the version of you that first walked in the door. That's how we're constantly measured. Or your brown belt version, the brown belt version of you versus the blue belt version of you. That's how we have to match it. We can't go, okay, take all the brown belts, you all fight, and only one brown belt can survive. Well, all the black belts, no, it's like you versus the previous version of you, right? Which is comparable. People come to me and they're not athletic. Like, you can't do a cartwheel, can't jump very high, can't jump very far. You cannot be, well, a successful fighter. Because when all technique, all those things, everything's matched up, is who is the most explosive. Obviously, game planning and things like that. Like, you just can't skip that part. Like, you just can't skip those, man. Like, it's in your DNA to be an athlete, or it's not in your DNA to be an athlete. You still can be very successful, but I wouldn't take someone that comes in or, you know, wants to train with me that I'm seeing that's not dedicated. If you're not in my gym, it's always going to be a no. You can be like, I'll give you $1 million. And I'll be like, no, thank you. With a smile. And ready to fight you just in case you think I'm being rude.
You do got a good smile. I got to say, it's disarming. It's funny because you're like, no, and I'll kill you. Yeah. So do you still corners?
You have your pair try to kill you first. Yeah. So I was cornering. So like Miranda Maverick, she's currently to Colorado. Working with her for a while, which was fun. was a trip too, because it made me remember, like when we would go to like the Apex or go back and stuff, it was the same people working there when I left. I was like, dang, you still here? Like this person's still here, this person's still here, which is really funny. And it's cool at the same time. So working with her, even seeing like people I competed against still fighting 10 years later now, 10 years later, I'm like, you guys are crazy, man. Like it got to be something else to do besides letting people punch on you at almost 40 years old. So so it was working with her, but she is the hardest worker that I've ever encountered, to include myself, that I've ever seen. Like I've never seen anyone stay in the gym as long as she has. Never seen anyone train as hard as she has. I've never seen anyone carry the amount of outside responsibility she has, and to get it done and to be able to move into a high level. Like, and she wanted to do everything. Like we would have to push her out the gym at times. Train 6 hours in a row, 6 in a, you got to go home. Let's train really hard and go home. But she was probably like the most determined. So I enjoyed working with her. I enjoyed going back and forth with her. Enjoyed, helping out the best I can. And it wasn't just me. Obviously, it was a whole team, right? So it was a whole team. Jake Chamberlain, the House of Moors. There's a bunch of, a lot of people involved. But Jake and I would do the traveling with her. Obviously the most, and then cornering and all that other good stuff. But with her, I found I respected her, because in the beginning, Jake was like, "Oh, you're gonna go on a fight with this?" Because she had just came to our school, and she might have classes like, "You're gonna," like, "Nope, I don't know her." Like she's been my student for like 5 seconds. Like I don't know her enough to go. Started to work. I said, "Okay, yeah, now I can give my time to her too." So I have 3 daughters. I have stuff I can do. I can go to a game. I can go here. I can go there. I have business I'm running. Like I can do that. I want to make sure I give them. If I give you some of that time, like that means I'm taking time away from them. So it has to be important. This isn't just on a whim. And I've had people disagree, not want to train in my school. They don't overtly say it. They covertly just kind of drift away, which I'm like, I don't mind those, man. Like it's cool. I'm gonna always make my decision the best for me. I don't know what your guys' gym situation is, but I'm lucky enough that I don't need to eat off the fruit of my gym. So it lets me be selective in who I allow to train there, the vibe of the gym. Because if I was in a space where I needed to eat off of it, it'd be like any and everybody, come on, as many as I can, sign up. I don't care how much you got. You got $1? Come on. You got $2? Come on. Whoever got money, please give it to me. And then you have to live with that environment that you created, which would probably be chaotic and a little toxic. And we don't have that vibe. And we've been lucky enough to pull students in from the area, from the space, that want to get good training. And I've been lucky enough to be a part of it. Those are the only person I've worked with. And then Chris McCarty, he is not in the UFC yet, but another extremely hard worker, like a crusher, man. Like that dude, the McCarty grip is real. And he's out in California right now training with guys. And then he was like, I think his last fight was in the LFA, might have been an LFA, and they're fighting in between cards, but he's a grinder too. So if I help 2 people, then I did enough. Because they'll help 2 people, and those 2 will help too. And then, it kind of branches out, moves out from there. I reach out to them every once in a while, give them praise or whatever, respect for not like it when we're doing it, because not to be like, if I'm your coach, you're not going to like me, but you will remember things that I taught you, or, to help you later on. But after those 2, I'm done. The only way, maybe, like my kids are getting older. So like maybe my youngest is 13. So maybe when she's like in college or something, then if I'm still doing this and someone needs some help, I'll have the time to do it. But as long as I have like kids in the house, I'm not doing anymore.
Yeah, no, it's a big commitment. I work closely with the MMA and the 2 head MMA instructors at Enzo's, and they say the same thing. Like it's their time, and you have to you have to prove it. You have to earn that shit first. They're not just going to give that stuff up, and they don't even have kids. They're just like, no, it's too much, you know?
Yeah. Because you get so many losses. You get so many people that start, they BS you, and then they quit. They started BS you,
especially MMA. Yeah. MMA. The drop off rate is massive. Guys go, oh, I want to fight. Like, get knocked out 3 times, and then let's talk.
Fight. Yeah.
But then you get the crazy ones like Eli. Eli comes in. He has 1 fight, and he was like, I was fucking made for this shit. And this is all he does. The kid just sipped it. He works at Hento's. He lives, eats, breathes, and sleeps fighting. And they'll give them all the time in the world because that kid is, man, he's amazing. It's just amazing to watch that. Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up here. You got like 2 minutes, just parting words to. It could be about anything you want. You want to leave with.
So while I have the platform, I always like to give thanks and grace. Number 1 to my students, like those that are at the academy, make the academy, and then to our instructors. So we're have the school itself, and we run a program over at the House of Muay Thai. So. You know, Jake Chamberlain, Kayla Chamberlain, his wife, you know, they're there, all their instructors, of course. Aaron, Gino, Christian, Derek, to take a lot of responsibilities and push and growth to the gym. And helping me build what I have in my mind, which is create a community for people to go out and express themselves or give them an opportunity to give their time. We have to give our time to something, to give their time to jiu-jitsu and in the of growing the martial art. And the most important, all the parents of all the students in my school, any other school, they're giving their kids the gift of the martial arts. Like that is hyper important. My parents loved me, but they didn't. I walked, rode my bike, bus, train to go to my events. They didn't understand the worth in it, but they were just glad I was doing something positive. So for those parents that are paying and driving their kids from, you know, A to B, picking them up here, doing all that stuff, man, like you got to give them a lot of praise, a lot of grace, because the kids may not see it right now, but that's always something that's going to stick with them for the rest of their life and hopefully for their children too.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Everyone else, that's what I want to give out.
Great. Thank you. Except for the crazies that try to dojo raid.
Yeah.
But then we give a smile though.
Always smile, but be real.
I love it, man. It's great. It's great. Well, man, seriously, thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor for us, and you shared so many great gems today. It was fantastic.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
We'll hit you up next time we're in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please do.
For sure.
White gi. Right, wear a white gi though. Bring a white gi.
White gi. I don't wear the gi much anymore these days. You said the thing about heel hooks, and Jacob looked at me because he knows I love the leg locks. I love the ashigarami. Yeah. I got a white gi somewhere. I teach in the gi now, so I'm like I put it on.
We have no gi classes too. We got no gi classes too. Yeah, we got no gi classes.
Yeah, you scare me with that little twinkle in your eye. Yeah, we have no gi. Come, you said earlier. You said no gi, or we go full steam.
We got you, bro.
Yeah. I know about that. All right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
We'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.
Appreciate you.